It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Whitmore University, nestled quietly in the heart of Oregon. In Lecture Hall 305, students filed in for their weekly cultural criticism class, led by the infamous Professor Eleanor Grayson. Sharp-tongued and unafraid to provoke, Grayson had built her reputation on challenging public figures and dissecting societal hypocrisy with biting precision. Among the crowd sat a tall, quiet figure dressed simply in a hoodie and jeans. Few knew his real identity. Barron Trump, youngest son of former President Donald Trump. Enrolled under a pseudonym, Barron had come to Whitmore in search of normalcy, a place where he could be judged for his thoughts, not his last name. For the most part, he'd managed to stay under the radar. Until that morning. The lecture began as usual, with Grayson pacing the front of the room, her voice brimming with energy as she explored the concept of public image and the masks worn by high-profile figures. Then came the moment that shifted everything. "Take Melania Trump," Grayson said, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Praised endlessly for her beauty and silence. Is that really the model virtue we still celebrate? A figurehead of elegance. But what substance lies beneath?" The class chuckled. A few exchanged knowing glances. Barron felt his stomach tighten. As Grayson continued, her critique of Melania's public persona sharpened into mockery. She ridiculed the Be Best campaign and dismissed the former First Lady as little more than a relic of outdated ideals. Barron could have stayed silent. He usually did. But not this time. He raised his hand. The room fell instantly quiet, the professor pausing mid-thought as her eyes met his. "Yes?" Grayson asked, a hint of challenge in her voice. Slowly Barron stood. His voice, though calm, carried a weight that hushed the entire room. "With all due respect," he began, "you talk about my mother, like she's just a symbol, a stereotype. But have you ever considered the person behind the headlines?" Whispers rippled through the class as realization dawned. Barron pressed on. "My mother came from a small town in Slovenia. She built a life through hard work, talent, and resilience. She speaks multiple languages. She's endured relentless public scrutiny. And yet, despite everything, she carries herself with grace. Maybe the real issue isn't her professor. Maybe it's how quick we are, as a society, to belittle the things we don't bother to understand." For a moment, nobody spoke. Even Grayson, known for her razor-sharp comebacks, seemed at a loss. Finally, she nodded, her voice more subdued. "Those are valid points." But Barron wasn't finished. "Criticism is important, but there's a difference between critique and ridicule, between analysis and mockery. I think we owe people more than cheap shots at their expense." The silence that followed was broken by scattered applause. Then, more. Soon the entire room erupted in support. From that day forward, Barron Trump was no longer just the quiet kid in the third row. He had become the voice that reminded everyone in that room, and eventually millions online, what it means to speak up with thoughtfulness and integrity. A fellow student's recording of the moment went viral within hours, captioned simply, "When the quietest person in the room changes everything." The clip sparked nationwide conversations about public perception, fairness, and the unseen humanity behind famous names. The next week, Professor Grayson opened her class with an unexpected admission. "I've spent my career challenging others," she said. "But last week, I was the one challenged, to rethink not just my opinions, but how I present them. And for that, I owe my thanks." For Barron, It wasn't about going viral or proving anyone wrong. It was about something far simpler. Reminding people that behind every name, famous or not, there's a story worth hearing. And sometimes, it just takes one quiet voice to change the whole conversation.